Welcome to Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, live from LaGuardia Airport, where just eating dinner at the Delta Sky Club, and boy, are my arms tired. It's nice for you to join on a Friday night. Very grateful to your last program of the week. I'm headed to Washington for the inauguration. I'm really going for the parties because I got invited to some things that I felt I should go to. So I'll be flying down momentarily, and I'm going to run through the headlines, and then we'll chat about whatever you want. If you're watching on Two-Way, raise your hand. Before you all joined on YouTube and X, I told everybody here on Two-Way, raise your hand. I want 100% hands up tonight. I may kick you out of the Zoom if you don't have your hand up. That's how strongly I feel. If you're watching on YouTube or on X, you cannot ask a question, but you can put things in the chat that are reflective of the ethos of this platform: peace, love, and understanding, and extend the presumption of grace to all. Pick an aisle. Somebody tell me to pick an aisle. Good idea. All right, here's the review of the food at the Delta Sky Club. I said this in the pregame. No one should make tofu jambalaya. Tofu's good. Maybe in a nice kung pao tofu, or what's that tofu dish that's really spicy? Ma pao tofu. Excellent. It shouldn't go in jambalaya. That's my review of that thing. And I didn't have time for anything else. Got to race down to the gate. Here's the news. Noah, what's like a traditional news way to introduce a newscast?
We
Now,
begin
here's Mark
tonight
Halp.
with
We begin tonight. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. Exactly. Up. Good evening. I'm going to count myself down in 3, 2, 1. Mark Halperin and sorry. In 3, 2, 1. It's 2 ways tonight with Mark Halperin. Now, here's Mark Halperin reporting on assignment. Good evening. We begin tonight with the inauguration. It's going to be cold in Washington on Monday. Tonight, Donald Trump decided to move it indoors. Pity the people who are working for networks who built big outdoor sets, because I don't think they're moving indoors. It's going to be a little odd. But the inauguration ceremony, the speech will be inside. It happened with Ronald Reagan in 1985 when he was reelected into the Capitol Rotunda. It will look and sound very different, but it's going to be really cold on Monday. It's the right thing to do. Not been very much reported, but a fact known to me. Donald Trump is extremely involved in the inauguration planning. Should not be a surprise to any of you who followed his career. As I've said before, he's a television producer at heart, and this is a big TV event. So in terms of who's invited, who's sitting where, who's entertaining, the order of the ceremony, obviously his speech, extremely involved. All presidents are, but I'm willing to go out on a limb and say, at a minimum, he's as involved as any other president-elect has been. And the decision to move inside, I know he has a romanticized view of Ronald Reagan. I'm willing to say the decision to move inside was easier for him, knowing that Reagan had done it for the same reason, extreme cold. The city's in lockdown. I was there last week. It was heavy security, and moving everything inside, makes it a different enterprise, and in some ways safer. Hope you're not hearing the overhead announcements. Always a risk when you do live from the airport. So the inauguration will be inside, and it'll I'm going to go on YouTube later tonight and look at the video of the Reagan one inside, because I don't remember what that looked like. But the image all of us have of being on the Capitol, outside the Capitol, it's just not going to be there. So I think it's fine. Some people are sort of disappointed. I think it'll be fine. Supreme Court today, which is right across the street from the Capitol, ruled on the TikTok case as expected, based on the justices' questioning of the parties when the case was recently argued. They upheld the law. So it's still not clear what's going to happen. The administration, the incoming administration, in whose lap this will fall, is trying very hard to figure out a way to keep TikTok alive, but without the ability of the Chinese to manipulate in all the ways we've discussed. So it's hard to find a buyer, and it's hard to get the Chinese to sell it. But I think there are going to be some twists and turns here. So if you're someone who likes watching people dance in their living room or kitchen, or cats doing crazy things that are crazier than they do on Instagram or YouTube, don't worry. Donald Trump, I think, is going to solve this. He's got some time. All right. President Biden today did a really confusing thing. He went out and he said the Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land. I could run through the long history of this. It's been going on for, I think, 50 years since it was introduced. And Biden says the Equal Rights Amendment is ratified, kicking off expected legal battle as he pushes through final executive actions. This is of a piece with something I've discussed here. We've discussed in the morning meeting. He's doing all these endgame things, which presidents do. but there's no echo around it. There's no messaging reinforcement. He just goes out and says it. This one's particularly strange because he's at war with the archivist of the United States. It's an incredibly Byzantine set of circumstances, but basically he's saying there's equal rights amendments in force. The people who say it isn't are going to say it isn't. There could be litigation on both sides. I would imagine the courts will not side with Joe Biden, but I think he wants as his legacy that he's the guy who said, yes, we have an equal rights amendment. It's of a piece with the stuff he's doing. We still don't know what he's going to do in the next couple of days regarding, for instance, potential additional pardons. But I say again, this is a little bit strange. It appears to me. White House confirmed today to various news organizations, the NBC News report, that he plans to write a book. We'll see about that, but that's what the his aides are saying. Also on Joe Biden, New York Times story published a little while ago. 4 top reporters byline. And if you look at the headline, put up the headline, please, you'll see it purports to be about this extraordinary story, one of the great stories and most outrageous developments in my career, and I think in American history, how Biden's inner circle protected a faltering president. Okay, that suggests perhaps the New York Times is finally going to get into the game, which the Wall Street Journal has been in, to say the decade-long cover-up of his decline of mental acuity, almost a decade, and the media's role in that. Incredible story, right? A very long story, 4 powerhouse bylines, extremely disappointing. They do what the New York Times has done almost, with a few exceptions, which I'll get to, almost throughout this controversy, this collusion, this conspiracy, which is they print the claims of Biden aides and Biden friends as if they're true. And there's so many examples of the public displays of loss of mental acuity they don't even mention. And what they do, again, if you read the whole thing in its totality, what they're accepting is he got tired because he traveled too much. He is physically declined, so he looked older. That there was a political problem rather than a medical problem, and that in some high-profile instances, like on foreign trips and at the debate, the problem was he was traveling too much and he was tired. But that in the main, he was exceptionally on top of everything. The story ends with an anecdote from a guy who was his aide in the 70s, who said he visited him at the White House and watched Biden edit his speech and tell people what edits he wanted. And it was like being back in the beginning of his career, hasn't lost a step. There's a few new anecdotes about people confronting him about his decline or confronting aides about his decline. Again, I say with respect, because I think the New York Times is, despite all its flaws, one of the great institutions in the country. This story is an embarrassment, and the senior editors of the paper should have killed it and said to the reporters, this story is just going to reinforce the perception that we were part of the cover-up, that we're not interested in getting to the bottom of this, because as I said, they didn't even report stuff that's on the public record. Okay, couple things from the story. They say in one paragraph, White House aides chastise White House correspondents for coverage of the president's age. That's true, they did, and it's a big part of the cover-up. They try to intimidate any reporter who would talk about this to write about it. Just putting that sentence in without specifics, because I can tell you it happened to New York Times reporters. Now, they may say, well, these attempts to chastise us or these chastisements were off the record. I wouldn't take that off the record. I wouldn't take being chastised about this off the record. So here's the paragraph that kills me. It just infuriates me because this is so important for history and for accountability. This should never happen again. Should never have an emperor's new clothes conspiracy between an administration of either party and the press corps. So they run through that. They say that the efforts to shield him were about the fact that he got cranky or he was demanding or he was tired, not about shielding him from being exposed as having lost mental acuity. There's nothing in the story. Again, there's so many things not in the story about his doctors. There's nothing in the story about how could he not have been tested for Parkinson's. They say, well, he didn't test for Parkinson's. How could they not? When anyone who's got a relative that has Parkinson's looked at him and said, seems like he's got Parkinson's. Okay. So here's the paragraph. They run through the concerns some foreign leaders had about his mental acuity and his state of mind on some international travel. Taken together, these factors affected how Mr. Biden was scheduled and took a toll on his energy levels as he campaigned, people close to him said. So again, they're back to he just got tired because he worked so hard. He remained focused and in command in internal meetings, aides said. Okay, how can you write that sentence? It's just not true. It just sometimes, yes, he was in command and focus, but anyway. But according to some, they also took to telling one another when it was a quote bad day mean that Mr. Biden's mood led to some meetings or calls being reshuffled to a better time. Other officials said it was because Mr. Biden was busy. Whole thing infuriates me, just really does. Okay. In other news, Ohio Senate race, Ohio Senate seat rather, the seat held by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. We've talked here. There was a flurry of questions about whether it might go to Vivek Ramaswamy, Doge co-captain. Instead, the lieutenant governor of Ohio, John Husted, is apparently going to be the senator from Ohio, named by Governor DeWine. And he was the front runner from the beginning. There was some notion he wanted to be run for governor rather than be a senator. Now the question of who will run for Ohio governor to replace Mike DeWine, but for whatever reason, this is not Vivek Ramaswamy will not get the seat. Peace deal in the Middle East is reportedly on track. The Israeli government, after some false starts, moved forward. We still expect there to be ceasefire Sunday morning. That's in Middle East time, and then initial round of hostages released on Sunday. Knock wood. We hope that stays on track. Let me make sure I covered everything I wanted to cover. I got one more thing, but don't worry, no, I'm not going to forget your favorite story. All right.
Mhm.
In Florida today, in a conservative part of the state, a jury found CNN liable for defaming a U.S. Navy veteran involved in private evacuation work in Afghanistan, which one news account calls a blow to the network's reputation that leaves it on the hook for potentially tens of millions of dollars in punitive damages. I believe they awarded $5 million already in what do you call that kind of damages? Just compensatory damages,
Yeah.
right?
And they reached
and
a
now,
sealed settlement on punitive. That's new.
so when's that going to be announced?
Probably not till Warner Brothers Discovery announces its earnings.
Interesting.
They
So,
said it's confidential.
okay, so I'll continue on that in a second. Thank you, Noah. According to two sources to the Washington Post, thank you, 603 friend, texting me, Matthew. Ramaswamy may run for governor. So it's possible he passed on the Senate seat. He said, let's get Husted out of here. And he'll run for governor. He wants to be president, and historically, you're better off being governor of Ohio than a senator from Ohio if you want to be president. So that'll be interesting, and of course, it'll be interesting to see if he gets Trump's endorsement. Donald Trump's endorsement in the last two cycles was tantamount to winning the nomination. Very few people in contested primaries with the Trump endorsement lost. In fact, maybe no one. But in many races, if someone got the Trump endorsement, everybody else dropped out. So I suspect if Ramaswamy gets Trump's endorsement, and I can't imagine that he wouldn't, knowing who the other possible candidates are and knowing that Elon Musk would be for that, if he can get that endorsement, he'll probably be the governor of Ohio. I mean, no sure things in politics or in life, except only sure thing I know is no one should be making tofu jambalaya. But except for that, but pretty straight shot to be governor of Ohio if he gets Trump's endorsement. Anyway, back to the CNN settlement. This is part of course, a series of legal cases, some settlements, some judgments against the big media. And if you look at the arguments made by the defense or the plaintiff's counsel in this case, he said, restore Walter Cronkite, restore trust in the media. The CNN lawyer, who happens to be named David Axelrod, no relation, argued, don't punish CNN. We need all our money so we can do serious journalism. And this is a big blow. It's a big blow symbolically. And people in the media who worry about the reputation of the media, worry about litigation against the media, they do not like this verdict. But jury verdicts, people sometimes read too much into them. But I think there clearly is a mood in the electorate, a mood in the citizenry to punish news organizations for doing what I might call fake news. If you read about this case and you see the internal CNN communications regarding how they thought about this guy who successfully has recovered damages, it's embarrassing. It's the kind of thing, unfortunately, that happens in newsrooms because newsrooms are like regular offices. But you got to believe that every news organization now is going to tell its employees, like, don't put stuff down. As you know, on digital paper, as you know, there's widespread speculation and some reporting that ABC settled their case with Donald Trump because of internal communications, which would have proven embarrassing to George Stephanopoulos and maybe others. In this case, the communications are very embarrassing. They basically demonstrate two things. One is that they seem to have malice towards this guy who successfully sued. Case involved his business of evacuating people from Afghanistan. And second, that there were people internally at CNN who said the story is not solid. And we shouldn't be running the story, and yet they ran it anyway. So I'm sort of of two minds of these cases. On the one hand, I understand the danger that exists to the ability of big media companies to operate if they are successfully sued, because not only are there damages, but it does inhibit aggressive journalism. On the other hand, I think based on following the case, it wasn't on the jury, obviously. Based on following the case, it seemed like, this is the kind of thing that shouldn't happen. And if what the result of this case is that people in newsrooms don't have malice towards people they're doing stories about, and they take seriously their colleagues' cautions about not running stories they shouldn't run, I think those things would be good. So we'll see how much fallout there is, but there's a lot of hand wringing in the media world. All right. Monday is the inauguration. As you know, we'll be on live for our regular program. It's called Two-Way. What's it called? The morning meeting. Yeah. The morning meeting. We'll be on live for that. And then at 11:30, we'll come on. Sean Dan and I, Megan McCain and others will be here to have a two-way experience. We'll cover the run up to the swearing in at noon, and then President Trump's speech. And then we'll bring in folks the way we always do. We believe that two-way coverage of live events it's always been part of our plan. We've done it a few times. We did it on the Iowa caucuses. We did it on election night. Many of you joined us for that. Two-way conversation. So you're not just sitting at home watching the inauguration and then wondering, well, I wonder what people think about that. And you're not just listening to people paid to pontificate. So we're eager to hear what your thoughts are, whether you're a Trump supporter or not. We hope you'll join us. And then Monday night, I'll be back at 6 o'clock Eastern time for another one of whatever these are. So let's go to your questions, comments, suggestions. Let's see how many hands we have up, because I asked everybody to have their hands up. Oh my goodness, look how we did. Let's see who didn't raise their hands so far. Who I've asked. Ann Campbell refuses to raise her hand. Very annoying. Courtney refuses to raise her hand. Very annoying. Calling out people directly, because apparently it's the only way I can get participation. Even Jim Kennedy, my longtime friend, and Katie Johnson, my short-time friend, so far refusing to raise their hands. Nonetheless, many of you have, which I'm delighted by. And let's go. You know what? Tonight I'm going to bring in pairs, Matthew Bartlett and Patty Pitano. Both of you come in. Tell folks who don't know where you are. Matthew's either in New Hampshire or Washington, probably. And what's on your mind? Matthew, you first. Where are you tonight?
Hey, Mark, I am in Washington, D.C., Sim City, but now it's even more livelier than Las Vegas right now. You go out to the bars, you're meeting crypto people, you're meeting a lot of corporate executives. I was not here during the Bush years, but I was during the Obama years. And absent Hollywood, you have just an amazing, people in MAGA hats walking around. People are coming into town. And again, the business community coming in full force. One big picture question, and then a smaller.
Wait. Before you ask, you're gonna ask me a question?
Sure, everyone. Yeah.
Don't ask me any question now. Patty, where are you?
Michigan.
You ever been to inauguration before?
No.
All right,
No.
Matthew's gonna make it come alive for you.
I know
Matthew,
he already
tell,
is.
tell people what it's like. Like, are you meeting famous people? Or are you just seeing people with gaudy boots on? What are you seeing?
I mean, you're seeing a full mix of everything, right? I'm at a local cigar tavern, if you will. There are people coming in who, are clearly from across the country in cowboy hats, decked out in, outfits, in MAGA hats. And then again, you're seeing a lot of corporate interests coming in. Was here, saw crypto people, lawyers, everyone is coming to town, trying to hire up, trying to advance their interests.
Can you pick up your computer and pan around, or would that be problematic? I'm a little worried about your scarf stinking, just so you know.
Again, Mark McKinnon wears one scarf, I wear two. This place is actually going to be rented out for 3 days. No one knows who. But there are plenty of rumors that Trump and Vance may be popping in unannounced to special parties around the city. So there is a feel of electricity. Obviously, the weather will be putting a damper on things, but people are coming in, and a lot. The Verizon Center is going to be open for the rally and for a viewing party. So this town is, it feels like a New Year's Eve. If you're a Republican, if you're Trump aligned, this is really the beginning of the new 4 years.
Are you going to be sober enough to pick me up at the airport tonight?
I'm not sure that that was required. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
we'll find, no problems, only solutions.
All right. I need you both to hold on because we got people raising their hand frantically. Let's see what this is about. Robert. Oh, happy 8th birthday, Victoria.
Oh,
Victoria. Today's the day?
no, tomorrow. No.
Tomorrow. What are you expecting? You know
So
what presents you're getting already? Yeah, go ahead.
So like tomorrow's like my birthday party. So I send out invitations to my whole class.
Very nice. And where's your party going to be held?
At my dad's house.
That's so nice. I'm very excited for you. Let me ask you a question. Do you know who's going to be president on Monday?
No.
No, ask your dad.
It's Donald.
Whatever. Let's focus on the.
Victoria was a Kamala Harris supporter.
Okay.
So we had a lot of spirited debate about Kamala Harris because you didn't like when Donald Trump was talking about eating the dogs and eating the cats, right?
It was a joke.
It was a joke, wasn't it?
I think it probably was a joke because no one who could actually be president would say that seriously. Victoria, we couldn't be happier about your birthday and more excited. Can you come back Monday and show us some of your presents?
Okay, if I could.
Okay. All right. We look forward to that.
Have fun, everybody.
Okay, all right. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Have a great party. All right. Matthew, what's your question?
I guess three things. One is I read the New York Times piece on Schumer, which was just astounding that, Chuck Schumer, who was on, I think on Meet the Press, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, reiterated that, there were no concerns about Biden. Yet in that New York Times piece, it says that the president would call him, would often ramble, but it's okay because he always rambles. But then this is where the shocking line came in. He would oftentimes forget why he called. And the next line is, but Chuck Schumer said he can still do the job. Shocking, right? So we're seeing some of the coverage there.
That story pisses me off too. Now that excerpt came from a book. The reporting probably was done well before he was on Meet the Press. My speculation is that he was hammered for that Meet the Press performance because his donors want to clear out the underbrush and say, come on, everybody's got to acknowledge their role in the conspiracy of silence. That New York Times story was an outrage because it made it seem like he was the big hero who stood up to Biden. He didn't get Biden out. He just left and cried in the car by his account. So that story and the story they just ran, I'm just dumbfounded that will continue to be part of the conspiracy even now.
That was also the first time I've seen Hakeem Jeffries was the one that was pushing Kamala Harris more than Pelosi, more than Obama, more than Schumer. So that was interesting to me. Don't know if it's accurate. So there'll be much more reporting to come.
Yeah, he was certainly more bullish on her than the others, and certainly more bullish than Biden, who didn't think she could win.
Bill Gates did a report where he sat down for a 3-hour interview. A 3-hour dinner with Trump. Found him incredibly compelling, lucid. It was amazing. Again, we're seeing so much of tech and the business world now genuflecting, maybe for their own interests, but it's just interesting. When does that narrative change, Mark? Does that change on Monday? Democrats, the hearings have been lackluster at best. It doesn't seem as if there's any planned protests. Again, last time around, I was a Trump appointee in 2017. You saw pink, protest hats. Now you're seeing the MAGA hats. This town is certainly still trying to feel it, but when executive order number 1 is issued on Monday, does the tone change is my question.
I don't think so. I think he's got a long way here because the Democrats are really discombobulated more than I thought in November. And I think a lot of things he's going to do are not popular in Northwest Washington, but they're popular, right? Shutting down the border is popular. Some of the other things he'll do. I don't know if he does the J6 pardons. I don't know what that'll do, but I think people are energized by the prospect of a booming economy, a closed border, an end to the wars. And as long as those things seem on track, I don't think it's going to change. The Democrats really don't have a frame right now that they're comfortable with, that they're unified about to say, here's why you should turn against the guy who just won the election. So I don't think it'll change on Monday. I'm not sure when it will change.
And then lastly, with all this reporting coming out, the NBC News story was incredibly compelling yesterday, talking about the tension between Obama and Biden, Biden and Pelosi, Bob and Anita versus Jill and Hunter. And then Lawrence O'Donnell had, during the interview, Joe Biden is talking about how his mother convinced him to take the VP role. It wasn't this absolute. It just seems as if that's the slights continue on back and forth. My 4 years are better than your 8 years. Yet Biden is coming out on such a low, low note. As you pointed out, the White House videos yesterday were preposterous. The Hunter Biden pardon. Lastly, on the way out the door, we're expecting many more pardons. I'm asking you, does Senator Menendez get one? Or commutation?
Yeah. I think we're going to see more pardons. It would be inconsistent with the way things are going for him not to do it. And I don't think he'll care. And I think Donald Trump and his people will say, great, now we'll do J6. So it's unfortunate.
Wait, I'll be a Senate Dem.
Yeah.
You did not
Yeah.
answer the question. Does Menendez get a commutation?
Oh, specifically Menendez? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Why not? All right.
Okay.
Here, my fellow passenger, James Halperin.
James.
Lean in, give people a little wave, You missed it. There was a little girl on before his 8th birthday party's tomorrow. She's going to come back on Monday and tell us what she got. All right, Patty, you got any questions for Matthew?
Matthew, first of all, if I were there, I'm so jealous. I would meet you at the Nest for a drink at the Willard, one of my favorite places. Oh, I'm so jealous. You really
We'll go over to
convey
off the record.
excitement.
We'll kick it all night.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish I were there. I'm first of all, great job last night, Mark, on News Nation. It was great.
Thank you.
Also,
Did you hear my Crunchberry joke?
absolutely. I was going to say, good job, Captain Crunch. And Mark is on tonight on Fox.
No, Dan is.
I mean, Dan.
Yeah, I should be promoting that
tonight.
Yeah.
And Jim Acosta was bumped to midnight. He's on CNN. He's kind of going the way of Lawrence O'Donnell late in the wee hours. A question I have is about the oligarchy message that Biden made. Do you think that's kind of the level that the Dems are going to go in terms of their messaging now with Trump? That he's sort of conveying the party line, and that's the way they're line.
Yeah. Patty, first of all, I'm very impressed with your knowledge of Washington bars.
Well,
number one.
One of the few.
Number two, Matthew is our inaugural week party correspondent. I'm making you our media correspondent. You know a lot about the media, so that's good. There's no doubt that the leading line frame against Trump that most Democrats want to do is he's for the wealthy, which of course they've tried for a long time, and it's been a Democratic line against lots of Republicans that was effective against Mitt Romney. And that is plutocrats, that is not draining the swamp, but rewarding corporate interests. And it's the tax cuts for the wealthy. And I think if Bill Clinton or Barack Obama were, leading the Democratic Party now, I think they could make hay on that. They'll probably throw in, entitlement, trying to destroy Social Security and Medicare. It's an argument that can work, but it requires skill and it requires consistency. And the way Joe Biden did it the other night, I think, again, in more skillful hands might be effective. And there's certain truths to it. Of all the hopes I have for the Trump administration, I really hope it is not just an orgy of rewards for corporate special interests. I really hope it isn't. I think it would be just horrible if it were, and it might be. It might be. Now, I will say, there are plenty of Obama and Biden aides who are lobbyists who leverage their connections to the two previous Democratic administrations to reward their corporate special interests as well, and union interests. So it's not unique to Republicans to reward special interest, big money special interests. But I really hope that's not what it is, and I think Democrats will be on the watch. And I think that's the framing. That's, again, there's the most unity around that as the right framing, and it's the one you hear the most. I doubt they'll go after corporate interests the way Biden did, in part because Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer need to raise money from corporate interests. They just do, and so they run the risk of not having any money. And as we talked about this morning on the morning meeting, Trump's raising a lot of money. I mean, it's just extraordinary how much she's raising. Patty, anything else you want to say? Matthew, anything else? I'm going to bring in another two folks if you guys are done.
I just think like you said, this is something that has been played up before. Billionaires for Bush, right? Mitt Romney likes to
Yeah.
fire people. Harry Reid famously saying on the floor of the Senate, Republicans are addicted to Coke, meaning the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
Well, now
Yeah.
this is a little weirder. You have Elon Musk, who's such an outsider, who does not appear as if he's motivated financially. I'm sure he is,
But he
yet-
does. But he does have a lot of interests before the federal government.
But the others too, whether it's Bezos, whether it's Zuckerberg, whether it's now, Bill Gates, these were all people that were on the Democratic side. So it's interesting to see, try to use that same argument, in such of an outsider perspective.
Matthew, I don't want this request to make it seem like I'm being ungrateful, but I'll be in pickup zone 2, and I'd like some hot pad thai in a container I can eat in the car without spilling. So you're gonna have to
Anything-
buy it. You're gonna have to buy it. Then you have to go to like a Target and buy some Tupperware with a wide lattice, whatever that would be.
Only
Patty,
for
what did you want to
James.
say? Yeah,
I
James
just want to
doesn't-
say that I'm glad the inauguration is inside since they haven't figured out this drone thing. I was so worried they were going to have
Yeah,
all kinds
yeah.
of goofy stuff
Better-
going on.
better for the security for sure. All right, thank you both. Happy
Oh, thank
Friday,
you. Have fun,
Matthew.
Matt.
I'll see you in a little bit. And let's bring in our next pair. Lori Blackbird, how you doing?
I'm
Lori
great,
was-
thanks. How are you?
Lori was concerned this episode would suck, so I want to make sure she's good.
Nice.
Oh, look at this. Ann Campbell raised her hand, so of course I have to call her on her. Oops, wrong button. Ann Campbell and Tom both have been on this program before. Tom, welcome back. Where are you tonight?
I am in Northern California.
Yeah, and Ann, are you in Alabama?
I am. I'm in Birmingham.
Tom, you ever been to an Alabama football game in Alabama?
I have not.
All right, Tom, you got a bucket list?
Yeah.
You have one? Okay, add that.
Okay.
And tell him why. Tell him why, Ann.
They're fabulous. I mean, there's nothing like being in Bryant Denny at night when it's filled to capacity. And we've had kind of a touch and go year this year, and it didn't pan out like we had hoped. But we'll see. But even so,
Tom,
fabulous experience.
Even if you're not a football fan, and even if Alabama's not having a good game, you got to go do it. It's just
I've been to
nothing like-
Stanford games, but I think Alabama's probably going to be a little more exciting to watch.
Have you
now.
done
If
Mark?
you're
Have you
to
been to
Alabama, yeah. I've been
Kentucky?
everywhere. I've been everywhere, man. All right, Ann, what's on your mind? I know I forced you to ask a question, but make one up.
You did. I mean, you asked me to raise my hand, so I did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You set a good example.
A couple of things. One, I just want to tell you how funny you are. You make me laugh every time I get on the subway.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it, but you need to know all the jokes are written in Bangladesh on ChatGPT, and they're in the teleprompter right there. So I appreciate it, but it's really not for me. Thank you for that.
You're much funnier than people know. I mean, I just.
We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to spread the word.
And the other thing is, James is darling. He is so cute, and I love
James,
the fact.
They're saying you're cute and darling. Want to come back? Take a bow. He's busy, but thank you. I'll. Here
really
he comes.
is.
Yeah,
He
thank
really
you. Yeah, I'm very, very proud of him. He's a good traveler too.
Yeah,
Very
hi,
good
James.
traveler. They're saying hi. Do you want to wave to your fan? This woman lives in Alabama. Her name's Ann, and she thinks you're cute. Not unlike your parents think.
Yeah, you
All
really
right.
are. I started following you on
And with-
Instagram.
yeah.
so I could see James.
Yeah, she follows you on
Anyway.
Instagram. Do you have a question besides those two things, Ann?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you've heard anything about Trump's meeting with Eric Adams this morning.
Not a thing. I made a few, not calls, but I asked a few people, but both sides pretty tight-lipped. But I predict that if you ride nypost.com for the next 2 hours, I think you'll see a report on what happened. That's my prediction.
Okay.
But I don't
Okay.
I don't know. I wish I did. Stand by. And Tom, what's on your mind, sir, besides fish?
Yeah.
Look at those fish tanks.
Yeah, your son might like some of these. So
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've come back because I'm still processing the results of the election.
Yes, sir.
But I actually many decades ago I was a Republican, and I do care about fiscal responsibility. And I'm curious if you or anyone thinks that Trump will make a meaningful change to the annual $2 trillion budget deficit. You know,
Yeah.
70% of our budget is on defense and entitlements. The next item down is transportation, which is only 4%.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear anything from Hegseth about cutting spending in the Pentagon. And I think Trump has promised not to touch entitlements.
Yeah.
So where's the conservatism?
Yeah. So Tom, it's a great question. And I could talk about this for the remainder of the program, but let me tell you my sort of broad view of it. Donald Trump thinks the president who suffers political price for dealing with the deficit is a sucker. You know, why should he be the one to do it? Now, even though he's not up for re-election, it could hurt his party in the midterms. It's number one. Number two, although classical economics would tell you that there's a problem, continue to run deficits and add to the debt. America's been doing that for a long time. We did it. Bill Clinton's the only one who's really addressed this in a meaningful way in the last, 8 presidencies, right? And we've had big debt before Clinton, and then after Clinton, it came back up. And of course, the financial crisis, COVID, there have been things that have exacerbated it. But why is debt and deficit bad? It's bad because people think it'll drive up interest rates. They think perhaps the Chinese and others will stop lending us money. It hasn't happened. We haven't seen a cataclysmic impact on the American people, which is the only thing that would provide the incentive for politicians to do the hard things. You say classically, right? There's 3 ways to deal with the debt and deficit. One is raising taxes. If you believe that, if you don't believe in supply side economics, if you believe that if you raise taxes, you will not hurt economic growth unduly, and you'll bring in more revenue. That's one way. That's not going to happen under any Republican president. The other way people talk about is cutting spending. And as you correctly point out, you cannot cut spending enough to deal with the deficit unless you deal in a strong way with entitlements, which Trump has said he wouldn't do, and I doubt Republicans will do before the midterms. Third way is economic growth. And it's really the way Clinton did it. Clinton did raise some taxes, but the reason Clinton was able to reduce the deficit and debt was by robust economic growth. And I think there's a reasonable case to make that if you cut regulation, increase energy production, distribution, and export, that and create a positive business environment, that you can raise the GDP to 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, and that brings in more revenue, even without raising rates, even by cutting rates, and that could lead to reduce the deficit. Doge, I don't think they're going to cut very much, but I do think they'll make symbolic cuts that'll create a belief in the prospect of reducing the federal workforce, increasing efficiency so that you can spend less, just reducing the rate of growth in these departments as opposed to cutting spending. And then finally, in the terms of the Pentagon, as a political matter, the Republicans don't want to be the party that in real terms cut defense spending. But what they do want to do, and what Musk is fascinated by, and some of the other people involved in Doge, is can we do things more efficiently at the Pentagon? Right? That's been a thing forever, the $600 toilet seat of the Reagan administration, right? There's the possibility that you can not cut defense spending, but do more with what's being spent now. So my expectation is they will not go after entitlements now, although I do think they will after the midterms. Most people don't think they will. But that what they're going to do is they're going to cut some domestic discretionary. They're going to do some efficiency things, both the Pentagon and domestic discretionary, and then probably do something with Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid, that also saves some money, and be able to say at the midterms, we made government more efficient, we reduced the federal workforce, and we're on a path to savings. And then if you did Social Security and Medicare reform, you could start to make a reasonable dent in it. But all of that is meaningless compared to above 3% growth. And I think if they're right that the policies they plan to pursue regarding particularly energy and regulation reform, they might be right. Now, 2 of the things Trump plans to do could hurt the economy. Again, classical economics, immigration reform in terms of reducing the number of people in the country working, both the skilled worker visas, but also the people here illegally who contribute to the economy in so many ways. And then also tariffs. Those two things, although Trump claims both of things will help the economy, classical economics say they may hurt the economy. So those might run at cross purposes. But I would say, as I started, Trump's just not that interested in reducing the deficit. He's just not, because he thinks some other president should do it and let them suffer the political costs. That's I know I said it was a short answer. I know that was long, but it's, as you know, a very complicated topic.
Can I just respond with two things?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
First of all, the reason he should do it is because he loves this country and
Correct.
cares about his popularity. You should do the
Correct.
right thing for the next generation. I know that's
Correct.
old-fashioned, but character and integrity, those things should matter.
Yes, sir.
Second is, let's hold this man accountable. Like, what is the measurement? I would say the deficit should at least not go up under his leadership, because he should be able to get more with the same amount of money. Is that too much to ask of this great businessman?
It's absolutely not. Although, again, I'll say, Tom, although occasionally he talks about the concept, this was not a promise he made. He did not promise to reduce the deficit. So he should, for all the reasons you eloquently said, but he's promised a lot of stuff, but this is not something he's promised, because he doesn't really want to do it. But I will tell you again, I can't tell you how to eliminate the deficit. I can't tell you he'll make a serious dent in the debt. But if growth is above 3%, there will be deficit reduction. There just will be. And hopefully he'll do that. Have either of you ever been to the inauguration?
Only on C-SPAN.
Only on C-SPAN. That's a good way to go. Saves on gas money.
I'm gonna watch it Monday though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch all day Monday.
All right. I hope you join our coverage. Thank you both for joining. Great to have you both back. I hope you have a wonderful evening and a good weekend, and look forward to have you coming back regularly.
Safe travels.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you. Oops. All right. Now, I'll remind everybody that if you do come to Washington soon, for instance, on February 2nd, Sunday night, 5 o'clock Eastern time, we're doing our second live event. Sean Dan and I, Megan McCain, and others will be gathering in Washington. And to show you a good example of someone who's taken seriously my admonition to, even if you don't live in Washington, come to the event, and to buy your tickets now, because they're going to sell out. And once they sell out, I will have no sympathy for those of you who email and text me to say, could you give me some tickets and it's sold out on the website? That's my Rush Limbaugh thing, using some meaningless voice. Anyway, let's bring in Pete, my friend Pete. Pete, wait, did I hit the wrong thing? Oh my goodness, I've screwed the whole thing up. Help me, Sam, help me. Get me and Pete up there. Can you do that? I've lost the whole thread here. All right, there's me, and here is Pete. Right now, I did that wrong. There's just Pete. Let's try that. How am I getting Pete up here? I've lost my bearings. Add spotlight. There's me and Pete. All right, Pete, unmute. Tell everybody, Pete. Let's just do this like it's still.
I am. Okay.
Yeah. Let's do this like you're on the witness stand. Just answer the question, please. Sir, state your name.
I'm Pete from San Diego.
Pete from San Diego. That was my next question. You live in San Diego. Please just answer the question. Don't just stay with me. Where do you live, Pete? San Diego.
Vero Beach.
Where, sir, where will you be on February 2nd, 2025?
I'll be in the Pearl Street warehouse in Southwest Washington, D.C. 2,500 air miles away.
That's what I was going to say. Approximately how far that is. Sir, what brings you to Washington, D.C. on this upcoming trip?
Well, it's going to be the Two-Way Tonight live show, which I had tickets to the inauguration Monday, but it was so cold I canceled those and rebooked my trip to February 2nd just to be there for Two-Way.
Sir, are you telling me that you're traveling over 2,000 miles for the sole purpose of attending the morning meeting at night event?
That's
Washington,
correct.
DC.
In fact, my wife is coming with me. I booked it originally a one-way just for myself. And I asked my wife, do you want to go with me and see Mark Halperin? And she goes, well, yes. So I had to go back and rebook 2 seats.
Sir, as I understand it, these tickets are available for both regular and VIP. Sir, may I ask which category?
I got the VIP, and I think I asked for the super VIP.
Oh, really? Okay. So what would you say? What would you say to those attending tonight's episode of Two-Way Tonight who not have yet to purchase their tickets for February 2nd.
I'd say there's plenty of good seats still available, but not for long.
There you go. All right. I want to, when I go check, I obsessively check. When I go check next, I want to make sure, I want to see that, like, I want to see like cash register, people buying tickets. Pete, thank you. We're looking forward to seeing you on February 2nd. You and I have never met, but we communicate regularly. Very glad you'll be there.
Okay.
What's on your mind tonight, sir?
Well, tonight, the one thing I'm glad about, the inauguration, I think, is going to change the whole dynamic about the sports teams visiting the White House. In the past 4 years when Trump was there, it was always this great agony over, the winners of the
Biden. You mean
Biden. But when Trump was there in 17 through 21, people,
okay.
and the winners of the baseball, whatever, they'd always agonize. Oh, Brady's not going to go. Brady is going to go. This guy was going to. And it'd be a huge drama over that, and I think that's all gone now. Fortunately, where you're going to have all the teams show up, all the players will show up, and it'll be happy days again without a lot of agonizing over who's there, who's not there. So I'm looking forward to that. And my question for you, Mark, is what month will Melania Trump be on the cover of Vogue?
Good question. I'll get that in a second. Who was the team where Trump served them fast food?
That was the Clemson. I think it was the Clemson Tigers, if I remember correctly.
Clemson men's
football team. Yeah.
Men's football.
That was a great.
Go up.
Yeah.
Just like as far as you could see, there was burgers. I think the Vogue cover time lag is quite substantial. So maybe what's the big issue? What's the name of that movie with Anna Wintour? Was it called the September
issue?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the September issue because that's the one that's like this.
Well, also I noticed that when Anna Wintour got her Presidential Medal of Freedom, she actually appeared without her sunglasses now, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Really? I thought she had them on.
No, she had them. There were no sunglasses, guys. I was looking back. They called her up there. I go, okay, we're going to see sunglasses or not. She was there, no sunglasses. Now I can see why she wears sunglasses.
I think she had them on and took them off because I swear I saw.
Well, she might have taken them off, but when she was up there on the stage on camera anyway, she was there with crow's feet. Times 10.
Totally, it wouldn't have been proper to have them on. James, stop distracting me. I'm hosting Two-Way Tonight. I'm guessing September, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing how she looks, like how dolled up she gets for that thing, because that'll be a big moment, and Donald Trump will just love it. There'll be another sign. It'll be another sign of the mulligan. Pete, thank you again, and you're a good salesman because I can see tickets are being sold out.
Okay, hey, and one final comment though is your son is. I expect him to get the first interview with a junior achievement with Donald Trump. I think he can pull that off.
You think you can get a good interview? We live a mile away from Trump Tower, less than a mile, and I send him over to the lobby regularly and ask for an interview. So I'm not sure you're right, but maybe we'll see when he gets in the White House.
Okay, we'll see.
Pete, thank you again, sir.
Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, let's bring in Richard, and doing such a poor job tonight. Oh, here we go. All right, Richard and Sue, another great match. Sue, thank you for coming back. Richard, tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, and then Sue will jump in.
All right. Yeah. Well, a long-time viewer, first-time hand raiser. So appreciate being on the program.
Did you raise your hand because I chided everybody?
Well, actually, I was eating dinner, so I was watching on YouTube until I was done with dinner, and then I came over, and but your chiding didn't hurt. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Where do you live, Richard?
I'm living in South Florida, so a little bit warmer than where you are.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you've got a beard and that guy behind you was that a painting?
Yeah, that's a print actually that I purchased. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Beautiful. Yeah. What's on your mind, sir?
This might have been a better question to maybe save for Monday with Dan and Sean, but what I'm wondering about, I'm not extraordinarily plugged in to latest political news or anything like that, but
me neither.
I wonder. Yeah, I'm sure you're a bit more than I am, for sure.
Well, let's see. Ask your question. We'll see.
I wonder about the new administration, in that certainly we know the first 2 years leading up to the midterms they're going to have somewhat more of a free reign since they have all three branches of government. But how concerned do you think that President Trump will be about? I think his legacy, he'll consider his legacy very important. But as far as the future of the Republican Party, that is, will he be really focused on making sure that there's a good transition to, presumably the vice president would be running next time, or he's kind of a rogue character. So uh, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how concerned he is about the party in general versus his own agenda, particularly
Yeah.
after midterms.
Yeah,
Since he's
it's
a
a great.
lame duck. Yeah, I don't know that we
It's
think too
it's
much about that, but
it's
he's a lame duck,
yeah,
really.
yeah. He is a lame duck. Although again, he's an unusual lame duck because he had 4 years off to think about it and rest up. Although he was busy being indicted and shot at, but you know, it's the rare president in a second term who cares about his party, right?
Really?
If you look at, I mean, President Obama was famously uninterested in building the Democratic Party. President Clinton was more interested in building the Democratic Party, but he had some complexities in his life, caused him to not do that much. President Bush did some, but not very much in his second term. And of course, the last two presidents didn't have second terms, and so it's apples to oranges. Donald Trump cares about his legacy, right? He wants the history books to say he was one of the greatest presidents of all time. And that means he wants robust economic growth. He wants rebuild cities. He wants to end the endless wars. There's all sorts of things. He wants to close the border. It's also the case that if the Republicans are winning a lot of seats and he's succeeded by a Republican, J.D. Vance or someone else, that'll look better in the history books. Because if a Democrat replaces him, it's a repudiation. So even though Donald Trump gives off the vibe to many that he's a kind of a selfish, self-interested person, I think ironically, I try not to misuse that word, but I think it's okay in this case. Ironically, his self-interest is to be succeeded by a Republican and to have Republicans not lose control of the House and Senate, Republican governors to be elected. So I think he'll put some work into that. So much hinges on Vance. Will he endorse J.D. Vance? Will he allow J.D. Vance to use the platform of the White House to solidify his hold on the 2028 nomination? Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan, so back to Reagan. Reagan did not use his office or let George Bush use the office to get a stranglehold on the 1988 nomination. Bush had a very contested primary, which he eventually won. When Reagan endorsed him, which he didn't do till very late in the process, he called him George Bosh, symbolic, and didn't go all hilt in to make sure Bush won. And Bush did win, beat Dukakis. But so that's that. Then in 2000, not 2000, in 93 to 2000, the Clinton people famously isolated Gore and didn't go all in. They didn't let Gore use the platform to consolidate hold. He did anyway because he was very aggressive, but they fought him about stuff all the time. And then he only faced Bill Bradley. So even though Clinton didn't help him very much, he was able to use the platform of the vice presidency to clear the field, except for Senator Bradley, and be the nominee. The next test case is Biden, right? Biden in 2009 to 2016, he really wanted to run. And he faced a very similar situation to Gore, which is, and it was even more vociferous, that the Obama people were really disrespectful to him. They didn't help him. They wouldn't let him meet with donors. They, as I wrote in Game Change, they did a poll, or not Game Change, Double Down. They polled to see whether he should be replaced on the ticket by Hillary Clinton. So they were very disrespectful to him. And then, of course, President Obama and his people sided with Hillary Clinton. So Biden, despite the fact that he clearly wanted to run in 16 and of course ran in 20, so obviously he wanted to be president, they did not let him use the platform. Okay, so that's the recent history of this. Vance, I believe, is going to be allowed to use the platform, and I'm not saying he'll definitely run unopposed, but I actually think it's possible he might. If Trump goes all in for him and Trump maintains his extraordinary hold on the party. And again, the reason I'm running through this history is Gore did win the popular vote, and more people went to the polls in Florida intending to vote to Gore. So you can't tell the story of Clinton's repudiation by Bush's victory in an honest way, because Gore actually won in the sense of more voters supported him. But he did that without very much help from Clinton, and Gore didn't want Clinton's help at the end because of the Lewinsky matter. In 16, they stopped Biden from using the platform to such an extent, and then Obama said, "I'm not supporting you." This is different. At a minimum, you're going to see a lot of favoritism towards Vance, I believe, and maybe enough favoritism towards him that he clears the field. And the reason that's responsive to your question is the Democrats lost control of the White House in 2000, and the Republicans and the Democrats lost control of the White House in 16, right? So I think Trump would look at that and say, those two incumbent presidents who had vice presidents who wanted to run weren't aided and abetted by the incumbent president, and therefore it was a repudiation, right? It was a repudiation to Clinton that Bush replaced him. It was a repudiation to Obama that Trump replaced him. And I think Trump will look at that and say, I don't want that repudiation. If he thinks Vance can win a general election and keep the Republican Party in control of the White House, I think he may go all in for him.
Yeah.
And again, doesn't mean he'll run unopposed, but it'd be a big advantage. And I think he'll do the same in the midterms. He will look to win as many races as he can. James Blair, who's the deputy chief of staff in charge of the campaign, he will be very aggressive in leveraging Trump's fundraising strength and the weaknesses of the Democratic Party to try to make sure they keep their majorities. In the Senate, they almost certainly will. Not a sure thing, but it looks like they will. The House is a much dicier proposition. Of course, Trump's last 2 years, there's a night and day difference for him. Self-interest in having control of the House or not. So I suspect he'll be pretty aggressive there. There's my answer to your question. Sue, what's on your mind?
Well, before I have one thing to add to a bucket list in terms of sports.
Yeah.
People go to Allen Fieldhouse and watch a Kansas Jayhawks game. You have never been to a college basketball game that is anything like that. It is.
There's one place that's like it. Duke.
Because Duke's stadium, it's like this big, you know. I've
been. It's loud. It's loud.
It is loud. I mean, I've been there, but not for I've been to Duke's, whatever it is, Cameron Fieldhouse, but not for basketball. It was for volleyball. My daughter played.
All right, I'll go to a Jayhawk game. I haven't done that one. Probably should. It's
phenomenal. I'm a Jayhawk, and I'm also Kentucky Wildcat. So basketball runs in me. Like
I've been to Kentucky games. They're pretty epic too.
Yeah,
it's not as loud.
They were better before Rupp Arena, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not a Trump fan, as if people have listened to me, they know that. But the overriding thing right now, I do wish the best for our country. I hope that this administration is successful. I'm not sure in 2020 that there was a lot of that sentiment coming from the Trump voters, but as a non-Trump voter, Matthew's comment about why isn't there any protests and everything, people are just resigned. It is what it is. I mean, what can I do? You can't really do anything. Democrats don't have a leader right now. The performance, as you've talked about, the last few times in these hearings, has been ridiculous. I think on both sides. A lot of Democratic questions. Why ask Pam Bondi if she's an election denier? Of course she is. I mean, you're beating a dead horse. Move on to something that, makes sense to ask her to. But then you get John Kennedy asking that, he thought he was being, too clever, leading up this question and yes and no and yes and no. And then wham comes out of the blue with, his other point that he was going to make. I mean, to me, that's ridiculous as well. The whole hearing thing, it's ridiculous. It's more performative than anything. If they've performed well, they're going to get out of committee, and they'll get the positions. So I'm sitting here watching this and I'm very disappointed because I'd like to see the government be our best and brightest. Some of them are very good nominees. Some of them are not the best and the brightest. There are other people in the Republican Party who are loyal to Trump, and loyalty seems to be the thing, and also be able to be on camera. But there are other people that are more qualified for some of these positions. Ron DeSantis would be much more qualified for Secretary of Defense than Hegseth. So I look at that and I'm just disappointed all around. And I'm also concerned with a lot of the comments today. Kristi Noem has said this. Donald Trump is on tape saying this, that they're going to condition the aid to California. And that makes me concerned because you saw that in his last administration, that there was reluctance. You know, we're all Americans. And I'm trying to remind myself right now, I'm gone back to read this, the first book, just to remind myself, we are all Americans. We all pay taxes. Why? I'm just terribly disappointed right now. And especially because I live in a blue state and there were times when we have wildfires all the time. We had 6 wildfires this summer, 10 miles from my house. One was caused by a bird that flew into high tension wire, caught on fire, hit the ground, started the brush on fire. No way you can possibly plan for anything like that, especially if you have 6 going at the same time. So I'm concerned when wildfire season hits Colorado again. We had this before that, okay, I'm not sending you money. You know, I pay taxes. We're all Americans.
So I'm cutting you off only because I have to board. So I'll say this. I understand why you're disappointed. And these hearings, as I've said, they're not usually very uplifting. And let's hope that when the administration comes in, they do some things that you like. But members of Congress in situations like this, they're not at their highest and best. I get why you're disappointed. You should be disappointed in me too, because I was supposed to play 2 Kristi Noem sound bites from her confirmation hearing today, and you reminded me. I completely forgot. So I apologize to everyone, including Noah, who prepared them. Noah, sorry about that. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Richard, for joining. Very grateful to you. Richard, come back regularly. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
So
Great platform. Love it.
Thank you. I'll see you Monday morning with Sean and Dan. And then again, we'll have special inauguration coverage. And then I'll be back Monday night, Tuesday night. James, you want to come say goodbye to everybody? And we hope you have a great weekend. And we'll see you again, 9 a.m. Eastern time, regular time Monday for our special inauguration day. Wave to everybody to say bye. Yeah, okay. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.